Hello, everybody. This is Terrence Popp with another episode of Live from the Lair. And today, I'm going to be covering a subject that is near and dear to my heart. If you haven't watched this show before, a little background on me. 33 years in the military system between active duty, Army Reserve, and National Guard time. I was in the military while 3 formal conflicts erupted, and I was almost killed in 2 because I lead from the front and by example. All right, now, in that time, over 3 decades, I saw all kinds of crazy, fucked up shit. All right, I can't really call it anything else. And when I retired in 2018, it was becoming unbearable for individuals like me to continue serving. Though I wanted to do another 4 years and, have them kick me out at 40, but it is what it is. There's just no way I could have tolerated what's going on, and I would have gotten into a lot of trouble. All right, now there are 10 reasons on the board behind me. I wrote an essay that has 12, but I combined a couple on here to make it 10 just to shorten the length of the video. And the essay, once it's edited and cleaned up, is going to be signed by me and released to the internet to basically inform everybody exactly what is going on. All right, now, you're not going to hear about this in mainstream media because, 1, they don't care. 2, the left and most of the country frown upon the government and they want to change it to be something else. And one of the big obstacles to getting the change that they want was the military as it was more conservative, and the steps they're taking is running a lot of those individuals out. And you can see it in the recruitment numbers and the crazy politics that's going on within the units right now as you watch this video.
Are you the kind of person who's run out of feelings to hurt?
Yeah. Wah, wah, wah.
Wah.
Then we have the Redonkulas swag for you. And we have multiple locations where you can get it. Go to the Stream Elements store or Crypto Fashion and embrace your inner fat punisher. Because after all,
There's a little bad pop in all of us. Even your mother.
shirts, stickers, mugs, and hats are on sale now. Your support helps keep us independent from big tech and keeps this life-saving train on the tracks. Links are in the Meat Gazer box.
All right, now the first thing on this list, you will see incompetent officers. All right. When I say incompetent, that is exactly what I mean. I am not going to cut corners for these fucking pieces of shit because let's face it, in 33 years, I came across 12 officers who were good. 4 of them are now dead, and all but 1 are now retired. All right? That is absolutely atrocious. All right? That every 2 years, on average, sometimes a year and a half, I had a new officer show up that had all these grandiose ideas, and they thought they were better than you because they came from West Point, Annapolis, or they have a 4-year degree. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is no substitute for experience. And I can't tell you how many times I had a first lieutenant or an eager beaver captain show up and make all of these changes to a system that was working only to fuck it up. All right, and the officers get a pass, they fuck up and go up the chain, and the enlisted guys are holding the goddamn, the bag, as she will say, the bagmen there. They make the enlisted look bad so they can elevate themselves. And this is extremely common across the board. Now, when I say a majority of the officers are incompetent or mediocre at best, that is exactly what I mean. That number is anywhere from 51% to 99%. You can pick the range, and all of the enlisted out there who are now out will know that I am speaking 100% truth here. Number 2. And this goes along with the incompetence. A lot of these officers, the only way they can make themselves look good is they have to destroy the subordinates around them to make it look like it's not me, it's them. They're terrible. I'm cracking the whip on these people to make it better. All right, I have seen many sergeants, 8, 10, 12, 14 years in the service, all of a sudden get a bar of re-enlistment put on their file for no reason whatsoever other than the fact that the chain of command doesn't like that soldier. Okay? And there's virtually fuck all that guy can do about it. All right? And there are supposedly systems in place like the inspector generals and they call it IG. You can contact your representative, your senators at the federal level. But by the time they take action, more than likely your ETS came up. Well, that stands for your last day in the service. And now you're out of the service and there's nothing you can do for the most part, barring a federal lawsuit. All right. I had a battalion commander. I am going to use part of her last name, Dina. And she was a couple of years older than me. And she was just a walking clusterfuck of incompetence. I sat there and watched her run out of the service 4 individuals. And then she finally started going after me. Except for the one fact that, at the time I was a triple tabbed guy, meaning I had served as a paratrooper and I served as an actual airborne ranger in the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and I went on to become a Green Beret. Now, typically, a battalion commander can point at anyone in their command and go, that person is a piece of shit, and there's very little that enlisted member can do about it, except for when that individual is a triple tab guy like I was. So when she put together her arguments that I was a piece of shit, anyone looking at my service jacket would realize that no, he's not. It was a personal problem that she was elevating to a career-ending level. I started the IG complaints. I involved a complaint with the 1st general in my chain of command. My IG complaints went all the way up to the Department of Defense. And then I had my senator running top cover so it wouldn't be swept under the rug. And the end result is she got a pass. They sent her to a fellowship at Harvard. And while there, she was able to appeal the findings of the IG complaints 3 times before it came back with no findings. And they promoted her to full colonel, at which point I was contacted by the 1st general officer in her chain of command, and I forwarded him all of the evidence for the IG complaints, and she was promptly told, pack your bags, drop your packet, you're fucking out. So literally, she got retired at 20 years and a couple months. And that this is just proof positive that our military supports and condones toxic leaders, and they don't give a shit. And the word is out. Okay, because this has been going on since the 80s. All right, I have talked to thousands of guys over the past decade, or say 12 years, who are completely jaded on the military service simply because of the toxic leaders and the horrible shit that was done to them. Well, guess what? Those people get out of the service and they tell their friends and family about the clusterfuck that's going on. It's an open secret. It is out now. All right? The Department of Defense has screwed over so many people that now the general population is like, volunteer. I don't know. And who can blame them? I don't. I cannot honestly tell an individual to go into the service today unless it is his last and only option. Like, he's a foster child. He's about to turn 18 and all of his benefits are going to terminate. He has nowhere to go. All right, that is pretty much it. Okay. And all I can say to the Department of Defense and the Department of the Army, fuck you. You knew this was happening. I sat in on many, many briefings about toxic leadership between 2010 and 2018, and fuck all was done about it. Okay? Number 3. The destruction of the pension system. All right. Now, when that was put in place after Vietnam, for the most part, it was done to keep professionals in the service. So you could train these people one time, promote them up the chain so they have all the experience they need, and then when they're done, they can retire. All right. Now that's gone. They moved it to a 401k system because, if you get out in 5 years, you want to have money. You don't want to get out of the service in 10 years and have nothing, or 15 and have nothing. Okay, I got it. That is a legitimate criticism. But let's talk about it in real numbers. All right. Getting paid to be in the military, you are not getting paid a lot of money. All right. They pay you just enough to make you think about coming back, but it's not a lot of money. And you are on call 24/7, 365. You're subject to toxic leaders, dismemberment, death, and what have you. And the only compensation there really was for putting up with all of that horse shit was 20 years, you get to retire. Now, for you to actually retire with the same amount of income that you would get it under the old system, you would have to be an E7 for 20 goddamn years. Because that E7 pay is pretty much where the cutoff is for being able to live on what you're paid and then being able to put some aside for investment/retirement. Up until that point, it is 100% survival mode, especially if you get married and have kids. All right. Listen, I have been in the office when it's recommended for soldiers to apply for WIC and welfare while in the service. That is absolutely fucked. Okay. Now, back in the day, they used to subsidize the PX and the commissary so you could go in there and make your money last so you could feed your family. The prices at these places are the same as on the civilian sector, but yet the pay is not going up. And the retirement is destroyed. All right? Here's another thing most people don't know about the 401k. Say you do become an E7 for 20 years and you put away $2 to $3 million bucks, because that's pretty much what it takes to live on the pension for 20 to 40 years after you get out. All right? Say you're driving, somebody steps out between two cars, you don't see them, it's too late, you hit them, they die. All right? You're found not guilty, but that family decides to sue you for wrongful death. Well, you don't have any money except for what's in your 401k, and they win that case, you are now destitute. If you have the 20-year pension, you don't have to worry about that. All right? So the 401k is cheapened being in the military to basically the fact that it's not cost effective. The risk to reward just isn't there. All right. I don't blame these guys for not wanting to dedicate 20 plus years to the service now, just because of that. Okay. Yeah. There are some adjustments that I think they should make, like i.e., you can get a small pension every 10 years. If you can do 10 years, decide you're done, you get a small pension based on the 10 years. Same thing at 15, same thing at 20. There you have it. But the 401k system they're putting in place is absolute garbage. All right. I've gone on about that way too much. This is going to be a long video. I'm sorry. Number 4, student loans and grants. Now, the main reason I went in the service at 17 is there was no scholarships or grants for a white boy with a 2.51 GPA. All right. There was no opportunities for me at all because I was raised in a single mother home and she had no money because, quite honestly, she's atrocious with her money, but that's another story. Now, if you have a 2.5 GPA and you can get a scholarship or a grant, which they're out there now, do you really want to go in the service and postpone your education 2, 4, 6 years? And maybe and if you do it honorably, get the GI Bill, and then you go to college? Or are you just going to take the loans and the grants up front and say, screw the military, I can go right now and I don't have to waste 4 years? That's what's happening. All right? The GI Bill has lost its teeth. And the main loss for that is the student loans and the grants, which anyone can get if they walk onto a campus and say, I want to go to school. All right? If that was available to me when I was 17, my life could have gone in a completely different direction. Chances are I would have been a substitute cuck mangina, but that's another story. All right? 5, the pay is shit. All right? If a high school graduate can walk out of the front doors of the high school, execute a right face, walk 3 blocks up to McDonald's, put in an application, and get paid, starting pay $15 an hour, that high school graduate is going to make $2,400 gross, while his buddy who went in the service won't even come close to that until he's been in the service for 3 years. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. They're like, well, if you go in the military, you got room and board, and they take care of your medical needs and what have you. But you're exposed to work 24/7, 365. They could send you to places where you can be, killed or maimed, and all they're going to do is go, oh, I'm sorry. Who in their right mind is going to sign up for that? Okay, now granted, there are people out there, and I was one of them, I would say, who are very patriotic, love the country, and they're willing to take a hit on pay for the privilege of being there. I was that guy up until about 32. All right? And that's when I started realizing the bullshit, and I got enough rank to look behind the curtain, and I knew just how fucked everything was. And I'm sorry I'm using a lot of profanity in this. There's going to probably be some people who are turned off by it. but I'm a retired first sergeant. I did 22 years in the special ops community, and that's just how I talk. So fuck you! All right. 6, woke bullshit. All right, so I was just starting to have to deal with the woke horse shit, roughly around 2015-ish. For the most part, I was able to shut it down. From the get-go, I refused to participate, and everyone in the unit and my chain of command knew I was not participating in stupid bullshit. I showed up to make sure people had the right equipment, made sure that they got the trainings and the schools they needed, made sure they made their medical appointments, and then I trained them how to conduct actual combat operations so they could come home fucking alive. Other than that, I didn't fucking care about your feelings. I didn't care about your goddamn politics. I just didn't give a fuck. And the minute you're like, well, he talked to me harshly. I don't care. It's not my fault that anyone walking by can reach into your think and meet and flip switches on your control board. That's you being fucking weak. That's nothing to do with me. Fix yourself. All right. That's the woke bullshit. 7, affirmative action. All right. I have a lot of experience with affirmative action. Now, I did not have to serve directly with female soldiers until I went over to CAPOC, which stands for Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command. And wow, CAPOC was a haven for the incompetent, the weak, and the whining. All right. Now, as a first sergeant, training sergeant in civil affairs, which I did from roughly 2009, 10-ish to 2018-ish, I had to deal with a lot of female soldiers. And I saw exactly what I had to put up with. Now, roughly anywhere from 5 to 7, 5 to 10, sometimes a little higher percent of the unit were female. And we were expending huge amounts of time and resources on this small percentage of soldiers. Now, I'm not going to say all of the female soldiers I had were absolute shit, because they weren't. I had a few that were really good. Now, were they physically able to do a lot of the stuff they were supposed to do? 50-50. But the key is, when I would tell them I needed something done, they would execute. They weren't always successful, but there weren't excuses. There was no whining. They went and they were about the task I ordered them or I assigned them to do. The rest, excuses, crying, okay? And then when you don't fall for those two, they hit you with some kind of allegation like you sexually assaulted them or you're hitting on them and you're sexually harassing them. And the minute they would do that, there would be this curtain of protection that would come down, and I was not allowed to do my job while they're allowed to fester and fuck up the morale of the entire fucking unit. All right, in CAPOC, over the 12-year period I was there, I probably sent up the chain a good 40 separation packets for female soldiers who couldn't make height and weight or PT. Do you know how many of them were actually discharged? None of them. Not one stinking one of these fucking shitty ragbag female soldiers. All right? Now, I had to do the same thing for male soldiers. And quite frankly, when I did it, I didn't like doing these packets on you. I would literally go to great lengths to keep that from, happening. But if you're fat, you refuse to do PT, there's really nothing I could do. Every single packet I sent up higher in CAPOC that was a male soldier, they were generally discharged for failure to adapt or something close to that. I don't know the exact wording. That's a JAG question. All I know is I put the packet together, I sent it up, and 90 days later, we had orders for this soldier, he's discharged. Every time. Here's another one that really pissed off a lot of my male soldiers, and I lost a lot of top-grade NCOs because of this. Now, civil affairs, other than the fact that it was led by idiots, if you're an older soldier or if you're broken, it's not a bad place to be. And that's kind of why they sent me there behind a desk, because I've been injured and wounded so many times. I just couldn't go balls to the walls anymore. It is what it is. But I had soldiers who did 2, 3, 4 years active duty, had anywhere from 1 to 5 deployments. All right. I looked at their NCOERs, or I talked to other people they were with. I looked at their records. I had guys with air assault, airborne, a CIB, all kinds of the really top grade bells and whistles. Meaning this dude who I wanted to promote proved his skills in fucking combat. And that is the ultimate test right there for anybody. I would help them put together the promotion packets. They'd have max PT, max weapon scores. The points they got for the awards were maxed out. But yet, a female soldier who got a 62% on her push-ups, 62% on her run, and 62% on her sit-ups was selected for promotion over this hard charger. And this happened time and time again. And they literally looked me in the eye and go, hey, sorry, I'm not re-enlisting. This is absolute horseshit. I've given 110% for the United States Army and for my government, only to be, just disrespected like this. Fuck it, I'm out. And there's nothing I could say about it. And that is happening across the board throughout the entire goddamn service. KPOC, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst ones, but it exists all the way up the chain now, especially in combat units where women are now allowed to serve. I'll just leave it right there. Okay. No support for the servicemen. I just brushed on this a little bit earlier in regards to the officers just tearing everyone apart. All right. Now, this also falls on the shoulders of some of the senior NCOs out there. Because let's face it, because of affirmative action and the Army's policy of fuck up and move up, we've got a lot of individuals in senior NCO positions who are managers at best. Okay? The Army needs fucking leaders, not managers. A manager is somebody who makes sure, the dishes are good and the food is coming out on a regular basis, and that's it. It's completely different. They are not the same. All right. What I mean by no support for servicemen, I know of at least 2 or 3 dozen times where soldiers had legitimate fucking complaints that their chain of command was not following policy or regulation. And it went all the way up and disappeared. It was swept under a rug. That happens all the time. And that is the first symptom of fuck you, I don't give a fuck about you right there. All right. Now, this is taking place within the service. All right. I've also had guys go to the first general officer in the chain of command, and there was blatant wrong shit being done, and several soldiers, and this particular one were maimed. He got a bar re-enlistment and was thrown out of the service so they could keep it quiet, and his officer buddy could, continue to go up the ranks. We can't have bad PR on an officer even though they royally fuck up. All right. Now, I've seen that happen on other cases where it was blamed on one of the senior NCOs, and they absolutely crucified that guy based on nothing. It happens all the time. And you'll love this one. All right. The military has got the corner on this one. And this is the ultimate fraud, waste, and abuse. And they ignore this to no end. All right. There are certain jobs in the military which are extremely hard to replace the people who do those jobs. All right? I.e., like Green Berets and Delta and other high-level IT guys or signal guys. Okay. If you were to hire a guy to do that job, you'd have to pay him $250K a year. All right? Because training as a replacement is monumentally expensive. Case in point, I know of an NCO who's a friend of mine. 12 years active duty. For 10 of the 12 years, he ran signal intelligence out of Korea and spoke fluently 6 Asian dialects. Not to mention, he mastered all of the equipment, the antenna theory, all of the new stuff. It was his job to give those classes. He worked as an interpreter. He, would listen to the signal intelligence, be able to tell what the enemy is saying in real time, right? Well, married a local national. Decides he's going to divorce her. I don't know exactly what was going on. She makes some accusations. Okay, CID shows up, does a full investigation, no findings. Still gets a bar of re-enlistment and bounced the fuck out of the service. And I can tell you right now, they probably haven't replaced that guy to this day with somebody with the same qualifications. All right, and that happens all across all 4 branches or 5 branches of the service. You got a commander doesn't like somebody, doesn't really think about dollars and cents, and says, he's fucking gone. All right. The word is out. Okay. That is very common. And the only way I could see us going back to the volunteer army now, because of all the toxic horse shit that has taken place in enlistment ranks, is the enlisted ranks need a bill of soldiers' rights or servicemen's rights. Okay? So you don't have that officer who doesn't like you being able to flag you for no reason. There's whole regulations of the process how to get a soldier flagged. It's very rarely followed. Okay? And there needs to be a way for this guy to raise his hand and have other people come in and review what's going on and say yay or nay. All right? Like, for instance, we just had the poke and smoke mandates for the military. And you literally have, I've seen the emails of general officers telling chaplains, officers below them, like, hey, if you allow religious exceptions, I'm going to step on your fucking neck. Okay, they don't word it exactly like that, but I've been reading that kind of shit long enough that I know a direct threat to somebody's career when I fucking read it. All right? There's absolutely no checks and balances for that. I've known dozens of guys who got GOMARs, which are general officer reprimand memos, and it ruined their career. Even when they were found innocent or there was no findings. Just the fact that an accusation was made, now he has a general letter of reprimand in his file. And I'm going to tell you, career-wise, that's like trying to swim with a gravestone tied around your fucking neck. You're not going to make it to the shore. It will ruin your goddamn career. All right? In my opinion, we are now in an age where men can die almost instantaneously. Thousands could be killed almost instantaneously. The days of men lining up in different colored uniforms and shooting each other at close range are fucking gone. Because back then, they would allow this kind of power for the officers to have over the enlisted because quite literally, they marched these guys by the thousands to their death. And they didn't fucking care because those officers needed the experience. We cannot afford that today. Not in any way, shape, or form. It needs to fucking stop. Somebody's got to put together a Bill of Rights for the servicemen. So if they decide to make it a career, there's something protecting them from the toxic leadership that is fucking absolutely operating with no checks or balances at all. The secret's out. People fucking know it. All right, next. 9. The officer culture that we have is absolutely fucking disgusting. All right? Whew. There is a reason the enlisted hate West Pointers. They hate officers from Annapolis. All right? Because they're arrogant fuckwits who think they're better than you. And that attitude does not work for them in the long run. Because when you're arrogant, and I talk about this in my book, people will not interact with you. They don't want anything to do with you. All right? And another thing that's reprehensible at the officer culture is they show up. They don't give a shit about you. They're just punching the ticket to go on to the next fucking station. They don't care about their soldiers at all. Only what these soldiers can do for them. All right. Well, maybe in a draft army you can get away with that. But in a volunteer army, go fuck yourself. Just straight up go fuck yourself. That's not going to work out. And you know what? The officers who watch this, you could fuck off too. All right, because I know my stuff is being watched by active duty servicemen, and, you know, they need to know what's going on. All right. Last but not least, number 10, and this was going on when I first came in the service. They were running experiments on soldiers back in the mid to late 80s, and they're still doing it today. In fact, our government has a long history of treating its service members like guinea pigs. In the late 40s and up to the late 50s, they exposed countless guys to radiation. We had the syphilis experiments. I mean, you can literally Google it, and it's a list a mile long of all of the fucking horseshit. All right, now for me to get to the Ranger Battalion, I had to basically outcompete every enlisted soldier in an infantry fucking division. I had to be faster, stronger, have more endurance, be willing to go the extra mile, to freeze, starve, what have you. All right? Now, once I get to the Ranger Battalion, and all of a sudden they wanted to test out the nerve agent resisting pills, and I guess there was some other medication for sleep. I think it was an earlier version of Ambien. And then there was other rehydration powders and stuff they wanted to test out. And I refused to participate. And I literally had to go into the commander's office and go, "Sir, I literally walked on my feet through miles of broken fucking glass to be here, and I refuse to be a guinea pig." And fortunate for me, a commander said, "Roger, you're excluded." But today we have the poke and smoke. And in the media, we have a rash of deaths, which are far above the 5-year moving average, which they're really not going to explain, but we know what it is. They've had a rash of servicemen drop dead for no apparent reason, of course. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but in 33 years, I can recall 3 soldiers who dropped dead. One was fat. The other one smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day and drank like a fish. And the third guy had a hereditary problem with heart disease, and it killed him. That is it. Now, the rumor is Fort Bragg has anywhere between 50 and 70 soldiers who were found dead in their bunks or dropped dead doing PT since roughly the whole poke and smoke began. All right. And the media has been following this. The people out there are like, fuck that. Why should I invest my time and effort and possibly get maimed or killed so they could test this horse shit on me? And fuck it. I don't even blame them. Of all of the things on this entire list that makes it the worst, this is it right here. Nothing says you're expendable and we don't respect you and we don't give a shit about you than giving you experimental shit that hasn't been tested properly. All right? Because I can guarantee you there's going to be a huge expense moving forward for all of the veterans who are maimed because of this. this past 2 years. All right. All right. So that's it in a nutshell. This had to be a long one. There's a lot of problems with the military recruiting, and what we're seeing is the left slowly converting our military into back to a draft conscript kind of thing. So when that does happen in 3 to 5 years, when enough people don't willingly enlist and you start getting the draft notices, fuck you, and you let it happen. Because everyone out there should be pitching an absolute bitch about this. All right, because that's the next step here. All right, you guys, take it easy, and I'll talk to you later.